So that's the end of the T20I series then, and England have managed to break Rohit Sharma's extraordinary win record as captain in T20Is, but India still take the series. There'll be plenty of takeaways for both sides that we look back to on ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout. It's only fair with Ashley Giles and Piyush Chawla, in spite of England winning this game, that we start by looking back at one of the great T20 innings that we've seen in recent times, albeit in a losing cause, but 117 from Surya Kumar Yadav, head and shoulders above everyone else. Ashley Giles, take me through your thoughts on that breathtaking innings.
Yeah, incredible. In those circumstances, under that pressure, when India are 31 for 3, to come in and play that sort of classy innings, almost 360 around the ground, but mixing that sort of elegance and placement with extreme power as well. Fabulous innings. Just a shame it's in a losing cause.
I mean, we've seen him do this in the IPL very often, Piyush, but what was special about today's innings? Just the runs, for one. You have to think this is an extraordinary innings to be playing it for this long.
Well, the most special thing about this inning was, I felt personally, he kept that game alive, because when you have, chasing 216 odd runs, and when you're 31 for 3 down, and still you kept the game alive, and everyone was just watching, keeping an eye on their screen, that that the game could go anywhere. So that was the most special thing about that particular inning of Surya.
Fair to say, Piyush, that there's no doubt at all on Surya Kumar Yadav's place, not only in India's World Cup squad, but in the 11.
100%, because we all know what he can do at the, in middle order. He can open the innings for you. He can play at the finisher role as well. So definitely, he's just walking there into that playing 11.
Okay, let's look at England's performance today, Ashley. Now, what are the takeaways from this series and this game? There are some positives, but you could say India made changes looking at where they were in the series. You impressed with today's win for England? What boxes did they tick?
Yeah, firstly, you're right. India made changes, particularly to their bowling attack, which would have had a big effect. But yeah, quite an interesting performance from England, and starting with Josh Buttler deciding to bat first, which is sort of against the normal way England would have gone under Owen Morgan. The side favours chasing a lot, but Josh chose to bat first. It was almost role reversal from the last 2 matches, where England put a good score on the board, even after losing wickets steadily up front. And then, put pressure on the opposition and got wickets early the other way around. So India 31 for 3 within the power play is something we've seen a lot from England in this series, losing wickets early. So I think it's a good performance. It's always good to win, whether the series is gone or not. And I think from Josh's point of view, I think the other thing he did really well was managing his bowlers in that chase. It was always going to be a struggle for India, but I thought the way he handled his bowlers was particularly good.
If we talk about England's batting, Piyush, if we start with Josh Buttler, are we at all to be saying, oh, this is not the same Buttler? And, is that something that's about to change, or is there no trouble there? Josh Buttler is still the player that he was.
Well, he's still the same player, because sometimes what happens, you just, try to do everything possible for the team, and it doesn't pay out for you. So that's what's happening with him. And T20 is a kind of format where these things could happen to any player. But if you talk about the overall bat, the way Malan batted, that was sweet to watch, to be very honest.
All right. As far as bowlers go, Ashley, is this the biggest takeaway for England in this series? Richard Gleeson, Chris Jordan, Reece Stockley?
Yeah, Gleeson particularly is a big find to come back again. 1 for 31 in his 4 overs, given the total that was on the board and given the conditions at Trent Bridge, which really do suit batting. Great performance, 3 for 22 from Topley. So those guys, the big guys, really came in. Jordan's been very good throughout, and again, Josh clearly turned to Jordan in key moments in that game when he felt he needed an over to bring them back in. The one worry this game was the 67 runs off the 4 overs of spin. But again, in those conditions, it can happen. But again, missing Rashid in this lineup, and then it proves what such a kingpin he is in this team.
All right. As we look at India's biggest takeaways, every series, Piyush, they're looking to tick boxes from the World Cup. What are the biggest takeaways Let's take it from the positives here from this series. Shall we start with Bhuvneshwar Kumar?
Definitely, we can see the old Bhuvi back. The way he bowled, the way he was swinging the ball, that was like one of the most positive thing from India's point of view, heading towards the World Cup.
I guess the next big takeaway would be, what do we make of this Rishabh Pant decision at the top of the order, Piyush?
Well, as I mentioned last time also, that Rishabh Pant, they are trying him at top of the order, but still, for me, if KL Rahul is fit, he walks into the top position straight away with Rohit Sharma.
All right. On those 2 points, actually, I think we've discussed Bhuvneshwar Kumar in the past, but as India continue to try and get more answers or more clarity ahead of the World Cup, these decisions of Pant at the top and Virat Kohli's form, the type of template that they're applying or the type of approach that they're applying to the T20 game, what are the boxes that they've ticked from this series and what are the boxes that are still left to be ticked?
Well, certainly, I think they've shown they can, excuse me, play with that template of going hard and maintaining that pressure throughout. But I personally don't think, but I don't pick the sides. I think Kohli's place is in threat. He's world class. We know, he's got a proven track record. He's one of the best players who's played the game. I do think there are some things to work out around this keeping position, whether Pant bats up front or in the middle. We've seen DK bat in this game, and it's very difficult when you go in at the end. But it's sort of neither here nor there. And if KL Rahul's going to come back in at the top of the order, then I'm not sure of the point of continuing with this. For me, you're better off letting Pant bat in the middle and at the end and let him get experience there before that World Cup.
I mean, what about cashing in on someone like Deepak Huda's form, Piyush, which will go cold now if they are to give, say, Virat Kohli a long run here? How would you handle that situation now if it is Kohli versus Huda for one spot in the T20I team?
Well, Kohli is, somebody who's got a great record. You don't go on the present form because it can happen to anyone, and he's somebody who's just one good inning away. So he'll just get that good inning under his belt and he'll be back into form. So, and Huda has just played 3-4 games so far at international level. And when you're walking into that tournament like World Cup, you need experience. You definitely need experience. So you can't even compare Huda versus Kohli, because Kohli is somebody who just walks into your playing 11 straight away.
All right, fair enough. Piyush, impressed with the approach and the type of T20 cricket that India have clearly shown that they want to play. This is one of the few series where they had most of their best players available against a strong opposition. It looks like this is what's more of this is likely to come from India.
Yeah, if you see, most of the players were there and they were just, doing quite a few changes. They just want to check everyone because there hardly any time left for World Cup. So they just want to see who can be those 3-4 spots where they can fill in those shoes. And otherwise, they'll just go with the normal team which they played in the first two games.
What's the verdict of Dinesh Karthik after this series? I guess with every series we're going to try and understand if players and their stocks on their way up or not quite sure if they're on their way down. Piyush?
Well, if you talk about Dinesh Karthik, the way he has batted in last 6 months or something, so I think he has given that particular role that, okay, you'll be going in when there are 3 to 4 overs left and your game is, you just go in and just play your natural game. Because we have seen whenever Dinesh Karthik got to play more balls, except those that South Africa series, he looked a bit, confused, to be very honest. So he's somebody, when you give him those 4 to 5 overs and just tell him to just be yourself and play freely, he's a dangerous player.
Is there a zone or an area in particular that India still don't look like they're close to finding answers to? Ashley, there are a lot of good things happening here. Is there anything that you could see that this team still needs to tighten up?
Well, look, I think one of the issues they've got is an embarrassment of riches almost of players. So we've talked about it's great to be trying different variations and different players heading into a World Cup, but at some point you've got to settle. So do they really know what their best team is right now and where, as I've talked about, Pant should bat? I'd be DK obviously in the last period has played some very, very good cricket, but there are a lot of good players to fit into that team. And I would just throw in, what I've seen of Huda over the last couple of weeks. He looks like someone who could be really destructive in that top order. And I think Pant could do a very good job down the back end. But But I think generally going away from this series, India will be thinking they're in a decent place heading towards Australia.
And finally, an assessment of Joss Butler's first full series as official white ball captain. Tactically, how would he go, Ashley?
Yeah, like a tough baptism, I think, for Joss. But tactically, I think he's absolutely fine. It's a job he's done before when Owen's not played. I know it's different when you're full-time. But the long and the short of it is, for 2 games, we were outplayed by India. And those key areas that you have to get right, like getting runs at the top of the order, which we saw in this match with Malan and then Livingston. Without getting those runs, without getting that platform, without getting runs on the board, whatever, you're not going to compete. So you can be as tactically good as you want as a captain. If you don't get runs, don't get wickets, if your players don't perform, then you're not going to win many games of cricket.
All right. Now, series moves to, curiously, a 3-match ODI series now. And I wonder what importance ODIs hold at this stage. Everyone's attention seems to be the World Cup. Test cricket tends to keep us captivated every now and then. So, Piyush, Ashley, looking ahead to that first ODI at the Oval, Piyush, what kind of, what can you look forward to in an ODI series at this point in the year?
Well, whenever you walk onto the field, you just want to go there and win the games, no matter it's a test match, T20. We all know that, everyone is focusing on the World Cup, but these one-day games also are equally important because you want to, go onto the field, win those matches because you want to carry that confidence, that momentum, no matter it's a T20 or one day. You just want to play some good cricket. So I think these one-day games are also equally important.
India have picked a very different ODI bowling lineup. I know they're going to keep resting players and whatnot, but it looks like, Piyush, that Shami clearly isn't part of the T20 plans. Mohammad Siraj is in this squad. There's Prasidh Krishna, there's Shardul Thakur, and Arshdeep Singh, who only played the first T20I. Who would you like to see feature in what could be India's ideal ODI bowling lineup from the options I mentioned?
Well, if you ask me about the bowling options, Shami walks in straight away. Prasidh Krishna, the way he bowled before the IPL in that series against West Indies, so he'll be one of them. And for me, it will be between Siraj and Arshdeep, and obviously Hardik is bowling well. I don't know whether he'll be able to give you those 10 overs, but even if he can give you 5 overs, 6 overs, and Jaddu can give you a few overs, and then Chahal, obviously.
Our team's thinking about the 2023 50-over World Cup. It's happening in the second half of the year, Ashley, but are we looking at planning for 2 World Cups simultaneously just yet?
Look, I think you need to start to be thinking about it. You're juggling those 2 white ball competitions with the T20 World Cup just around the corner. But whereas the last T20 World Cup at the end of last year, you were very firmly fixed on T20 cricket. But you've got to start thinking now about your preparation towards that 23 World Cup. And I'm sure England will be trying to balance that carefully. England squad, we're seeing some of the big guns come back, the likes of Bairstow, Root, Stokes. No Rashid still, he'll be missing, but some very big players coming back into that side.
Players that you'd like to see, the big boys obviously return, so it's going to be a strong England ODI squad, Ashley, but you also have Harry Brook part of the ODI squad, Bryden Cass is there, Matt Parkinson as well, in the absence of Adil Rashid. Players in particular that you'd like to see get a few games in?
Yeah, certainly another bright spark, and we've only seen a very little bit of it, is someone like Harry Brook in this series. I thought he came in and had to go from ball 1 today, but demonstrated he has the skill to do that. I think he's a very fine player. And some of these guys, you've got to get time in their legs as well and games under their belts. So Bryden Cass, another one. Durham guy who's got real pace when he gets it right. Had some fitness worries, but I really like him and can smack it at the end. So those sort of guys, absolutely. And again, Parkinson, it would be nice to get some overs under his belt, but his job would be made very tough against this very good Indian side.
All right, more in a couple of days then when the ODI series comes our way. It's a big thank you to Piyush Chawla for his time on ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, and Ashley Giles will be with us for the ODIs as well. Gentlemen, thank you very much. India then clinch the T20 series 2-1. Let's see who takes the ODI series. Join us for ESPN Cricket for Match Day at the end of the first ODI on Tuesday.